This turned out to be a lot smaller than I anticipated. Let's take a look at what it looks like. But always seeing this on eBay, I wondered how big it would be for my battery box. Let's see here. But this thing is actually pretty small. It is both thicker and smaller than I anticipated. And it has some nice big slots there for wiring. 12 volt 4S, 10.5 amps out. So it will take in a up to a 34 volt panel, 140 watts max, and pumps out 14.2 volts. Pretty cool. Let's incorporate this into the battery box. So here's the box again. Still works great. Been keeping it at around 70 to 80% charge, and intentionally, well, first off, some extra cables I had in there. Let's see if it will fit in this desired spot. Might be a tight fit, especially with some of the stuff going on up here, but nope, it will fit just great. So I will get some wires set up. Got to figure out how I'm gonna do some fusing here. So what's happening here is that the charging cable to the battery itself has a 10 amp fuse on it, because the charging port here, according to the specs, can only go to 10 amps. So there's that. This can go up to 10.5 out. So the panel I'm using is not going to be 140 watts. It's going to be, the one I have now is 39 watts maximum. I believe that's right. Yeah, 39 watts. So I don't think I'm going to approach that amperage. The amperage here is the output amperage. Just wanted to show you some of the updates that I've done here since the last video. First off, I included one of these 4-point, let me see if I can get this here, one of these 4 fuse, automotive fuse boxes, and then I fused each one of these outputs to 25 amps. That's my, my radio uses 22 amps at highest transmit power, so I don't expect it to be much more than that. This here is, I believe that's 7.5, I'm not sure. That one goes to the, no, actually that's 5 amps. That one goes up to the power pod for the USB down here, so that goes to this. So that there will never be hit because it's a 1.75 amp draw for USB at its highest power, but just in case there's a short or anything, that will trip. And of course I have here on the on this part right here, this is the battery's charging cable, and so I put a 10 amp fuse on that. And so what that amounts to is a lot of protection in different areas. I see a lot of cables that do both negative and positive fuse. I don't want to go crazy with fuses, so I just put the fuses on the positive. Another thing to see here is this right here is something I've added. So if you think about it, this is 25, 25, and 5. Although this will never go above 2. So that's 52 possible amps. And this relay that I used to have here was a regular automotive relay, and it was a maximum of 40 amps. So there is a possibility that I could weld the relay closed. So what I did is I replaced it with this clear one, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's not the most power efficient one, but if I were to turn it on right now, oops, so I turn it on, you see, it lights up green there to show that it's on. Now I don't actually see that when it's in operation, but if you see here, it's now on. If I turn that off, it'll turn off. So, but that is a 60 amp automotive relay. I just thought it was cool that it was clear, because that allows me to see how it actually works, and that's pretty cool. Let me see if I can do it by feel here. I don't know if you could see that, but it's moving at the very top there. Connects and allows the circuit to work. So I'm gonna wire this thing up now and see how I can get it going with the solar controller, and I have to somehow secure this and figure out a way to make it so it doesn't move around. But it's good that it's this size. I was afraid of it hitting some of this, but it actually works just great. Let's move some of this wiring out of the way and it will work. It will fit right in there without any problems. Then I can solar charge and just plug in the panel directly. So here we are with the, it's not really charging right now because it's overcast. You can see in the reflection in the window there's a lot of clouds up there, but it's getting an incremental charge. Let me see here. The voltage has already gone up a little bit. The percentage has gone up 1% since I put it out here. Just wish I would get more sun, but if I open it up, it is doing its thing. Let's see if I can get that. There you go. So what I've done here is put the panel directly to the input. I've learned from the specs that the panel itself, or I'm sorry, the Genasun charger has a fuse built in. 19.5 amps is what it's supposed to take on the input, and it has a 20 amp fuse built in. It's a regular automotive fuse. So I didn't need to necessarily fuse the input here. The battery goes out to these separate wires, goes through the Hall effect sensor so that I could measure any input current to the battery, and the battery should at most output 10.5 amps, but I'll never reach that with the panels I have. It's going to be more like 2 amps. So that's the mess of wiring there. Very cluttered and crazy. It's weird. I can see it blinking, but the camera can't see it blinking. Anyway, that fast blink means that it is doing a lower volt, or lower amperage of charge, and seem to get it. There we And it will be a steady, slow blink if it ever reaches the higher charges. So that just keeps going. Oh, we got some indication now. So right now the input current from the controller is at about 1 amp. Sun's coming out a little more. Just seal this up. Right into there. No external connectors needed, or no external controllers needed anymore. I do have in here, this is my old charge controller that I had, and this I used to use, but now I don't need it. Don't need to bring it along all the time. Solar's great. Unfortunately, it's still, in my opinion, in its infancy for consumers. It's very difficult to actually get a good panel. This is rated at 39 watts. It's supposed to output 18 volts at 2.2 amps. And I don't know if it's actually doing that. I anticipate that it's doing actually a lot less. And this is the Sun Kingdom brand, which mysteriously disappeared from Amazon, but you can still find it on eBay. I bet I could find a better panel. The only thing is, I like the form factor of this panel. It's compact enough that it's not a pain to carry around. Some of these foldable 100 watt or 60 watt panels I've seen are pretty big. And then of course you have these really expensive ones that are rated at like 19, 28 watts. And they're nice in terms of form factor, but they don't really do much beyond give you enough power to charge your phone in a day. So this is the compromise, and I'll continue looking, and hopefully solar panel technology continues to develop so that consumers like me can find a good medium-sized one like this one that packs up nice and produces ideally around 60 watts of solar power, and that will help a lot. So here's the panel all folded up. You can see it says DC output is 18 volts at 2.2 amps. Monocrystalline cell type. And it just has 2 ports that come out, the DC out and USB. This is a light that's supposed to turn blue when it's operating, but I don't see that light turning on anymore, but it is obviously charging my battery still, so I haven't been kind to this thing. It's been definitely used, a lot of wear and tear. It seems to be doing great. And it folds up nice. It does with this. Just a size comparison. And that's my portable power right there. So that's the build. It's a 15 amp hour self-contained solar charging battery box with a 60 amp relay for main power, 25 amp fusing for any of the power poles that get connected to it, and a USB. And now I can take this completely portable 39 watt solar panel and the box, these two things, and I can have free power to power my radios, my devices, hotspots, and anything else that uses 12 amps or 12 volts. I also have on order a 200 watt inverter, pure sine wave inverter. Should be getting that tomorrow, and I will give that a try. Limiting it to 200 watts because that's about a 15 amp or so, something like that, 15 amp draw. But it's everything can fit in a backpack, and I can easily take it, especially car mobile, I can take it all the time. So pretty happy with how it turned out. The last thing I need to figure out is I have a battery charger here at home, which is a lot quicker and a lot more efficient. But what I read about the Genasun solar charge controller is that it actually has no reverse, or what did it say? Reverse polarity. Essentially, it doesn't let there's no reverse flow of current back out the charging port. So what that means is the smart charger I have can't sense a battery when I plug it into this port. Plus, I don't know if it's even good to be plugging in a charger into the panel input of a solar charge controller. And I'm pretty sure I'll get comments on that. The connection from the solar controller to the battery, I have to disconnect that and plug in the charger at that port, and then that requires opening up the box. I would have loved if I could just use one port, and whatever power source I hook up to it, it would just know what to do. But that's something I need to figure out as well. But really, I'm not really using this at home anyway. I'm using it out in the field. So charge it up when I get home, close it up, take it out, and during field operation, purely solar power. The other thing that I considered is that the way this is set up right now, the solar charge controller is constantly connected to the battery. That means it's always on. And I looked in the specs in the little sheet that came with this, and it says that there is a 0.9 milliamp draw in the nighttime, which I guess means when it's doing nothing, it's drawing 0.9 amps. Now I know that even if I turn on the power on the relay, if I just do this and turn it on, by engaging the relay, I know I'm already using 150 or so milliamps just on the relay coils. And that was calculated based on the ratings of resistance. I ran the multimeter on the relay control sides, and I saw that it had about 82 ohms of resistance. So on a 12 volt load or a 12 volt battery, that's, using engineering math, that comes out to about 150, 160 milliamps. You can double check my math, it's probably a little more than that. But what that means is whenever this thing is powered on, when I engage the relay, it's actually, there is another parasitic load on the battery, which is surprisingly about as much power as the Elecraft KX3 uses when it's on and receiving. I measured the draw of the KX3, and it draws about 150 to 200 milliamps when it's idle and just receiving. So just the relay alone is using that much power. That's pretty interesting. Either way, there's a lot of stuff. Even the always connected LCD that's drawing minuscule amounts of power, all of that basically means that over time this battery is getting drained, but it's not significant enough that I'm worried about it. I mean, if I were to store this, I would first discharge it to about 60 or 70%, and then I would just disconnect all these things. I would disconnect the LCD and the connections to the relay, and just have it, you know, stored in a battery-friendly, temperature-controlled environment. But in use, I don't care if it's missing a few hundredths, a few hundred milliamps from full charge out in the field, and I'll just top that up when I get a chance. So that's part 2 of this build. Took a lot of advice from people, and was able to build some safety mechanisms into the box, got the solar charge controller in there, and upgraded the relay so that it could actually handle the maximum load. If everything was going great and it was pulling 25 amps from each power pole, it would still be able to function. And the BMS is rated for 100 amps, so I'm not worried about the battery itself. I'm just more worried about if I had pulled more than 20 amps per power pole, I would have essentially possibly welded the relay closed, and would not have even known what happened. It would just be that way and never disengage. So there you have it. Hope you got something out of this. If anything, probably got a good laugh of my cabling. Thanks for watching. As you can see, it's springtime now here in 2019, and it's getting a little warmer. From what I could see, the Genasun solar charge controller was working well from the little sun that it could get, and I'm just happy that everything worked out. So if you like this, leave some comments, please. Like and subscribe. Please share this video, and yeah, follow me on Twitter if you can. Go there and find AD6DM. That's me. That's the best way to get in contact. Thanks a lot. Thanks again for watching, and 7-3.